Good evening. It is 5:30, and so we will call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to our regular board meeting of the Vancouver Public Schools. Before we get started, I wanted to share a few thoughts and reminders. We want our board to be a welcoming and safe space for all and any of our community members and guests. As this is a business meeting, we do expect those in attendance to conduct themselves in a respectful way. We would ask that you do not interrupt the meeting. And if there is an immediate need that you have, such as an audio concern or question, please move to the back and let one of our staff members know. As a reminder, there is a designated space for any video recording and/or media. We will now get started with our business meeting and the items on our agenda. First with roll call. Director Sproul? Here. Director Zavala? Here. Director Barros? Here. Director Smith here, and I am here as well. And now we'll have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Director Decker. Welcome, everyone. We'll start off our meeting with our tradition of the national anthem. So please rise if you are able and willing. And it is today under Fort Vancouver High School, their choir. If you're able to stay for the entire meeting, we wrap up with another performance from the Fort Choir. And if you're not able to stay for the full meeting and you would like to watch that performance, our meetings are archived on YouTube and you can watch it there. So we love that tradition. For the superintendent report tonight, I just have a couple items and then I'm going to have Brett Bleckschmidt give you an overview of where we're at with our budget adoption process. But the first one I wanted to check in with you on is we had another federal direction kind of email message last week about having 10 days to comply with some Title VI requirements. And so I know there was some confusion and questions about that because it talked about maybe jeopardizing our federal funding. And so just want to highlight that our state believes that we've already met that requirement and is going to proceed with verifying that with the federal government. And so we're just kind of in a holding pattern with that now, but that happened over spring break. And so wanted to make people aware of that. As people were coming in tonight, I saw some of you grab the flyers for our strategic plan update. So those, we always have a one pager that's included just to try to give a qualitative picture of what's happening in the district related to our strategic plan. And so this one is mirroring the study session that you had last month, where we were looking at some restorative practices and looking at the highly capable programming. So those are available for all of our guests and are archived online as well. With that, I'll turn it over to Brett to give us an update on where we're at with our budget development.
All right, thank you, Dr. Snell. So moving through some slides to guide our conversation. One of the first things we always kind of benchmark in our budget planning process is a timeline, looking at those major mileposts that are going to allow us to make those decisions and recommendations to our board. Unfortunately, this year with the state budget having a pretty big disparity between what the Senate is proposing for kindergarten through 12th grade school districts and what the House budget is proposing, we're not able to move as quickly and as concretely as we would like. But we still are, it's closer. Thank you. We still are kind of indexing towards April 27th, which is sine die for the legislature, which we hope they'll finish on time and have a final budget for us. That will allow us to really jumpstart a lot of the final staffing decisions and whether we have to make some small reductions or we're able to sustain our level of expenditures and services that we currently have. All of it concludes in August, where we will have a public hearing for final budget adoption per state law. And so you can kind of see there's a few other iterative conversations that we have to have and a lot of work that's going to happen once we get that state budget to operationalize where we're at. So, yeah, thank you. A reasonable question would be, so last year was one of the more painful budget experiences that I certainly have had in 25 years of doing this. I know many staff were impacted. And so the fair question is this budget going to conclude with anything like what last year's budget, the realities that we experienced there? And the good answer and short answer is no. That experience last year was the result of an accumulation of several years of kind of systemic budget challenges that we have, that we were able to kind of mute and mask with some one-time funding from the federal government for COVID, the ESSER funds, and we used our cash reserves to sustain services and positions as long as we possibly could. Last year was when all of that several years of kind of systemic deficits kind of caught up to us. So the good news is that we may have to make some reductions this year. It's too early to tell, but they won't be anywhere near the scale of reductions that we had last year. So another fair question is, well, why didn't we just reduce enough last year when we had all that turmoil to make sure that that wasn't a possibility in the future? And I think the short answer there is those reductions were so painful, and we know that they adversely impacted our students, that it would be irresponsible to speculatively cut just in case we didn't get additional funding from the state, in case some other things didn't change in a more favorable way for us. We still believe it's a very reasonable expectation that we get sufficient funding from the state to preserve the positions and services that we have today. So to prospectively reduce last year just in case did not feel like a responsible decision for us, given the scope and the pain that was causing staff and students. So I mentioned some of the systemic challenges that we have that kind of caught up to us last year. One of the biggest ones is about 85% of our budget is salary and benefits. And so when the labor market and the cost of employing staff grows faster than the state funding recognizes, it creates a deficit that compounds year over year. And that deficit exists not just the cost per staff or the salary and benefits on average that we pay compared to what we get from the state, but also the number of staff. There's a significant underfunding from the state in recognition of the number of positions that we need to serve our students. Some other areas where we have some structural deficiencies are, like many businesses and private budgets, insurance and utilities have increased at, I think, probably historic levels of inflation the last couple of years, and the state has not acknowledged those unprecedented inflationary pressures in those areas. Special education continues to be a significant challenge in terms of the needs of our students are growing very quickly and complexly. And the state funding is not keeping up with those. And then there's a slide where we'll get into that a little deeper. It's not as big as some of the other items, but substitute costs, the cost whenever our staff are gone, the show must go on in our schools, as we all know. And so employing those substitutes, when the state recognizes so little of the cost in their funding formula, has become an increasingly big demand on local funding. And then lastly, transportation, it kind of fluctuates year over year, but traditionally, we're one of the better districts in terms of our ability to efficiently run buses close to the funding. Other districts are way behind us, but still there is a underfunding that exists in transportation, and it tends to be growing versus getting better, unfortunately. I briefly alluded to in special ed that our students within the special education program and outside of it are demonstrating additional needs, more complex needs. And so we're hearing from staff, and we're certainly seeing ourselves that we could use way more staff versus the reductions that we've had to resign ourselves to in order to meet those increasingly complex needs. And then a last systemic challenge that I would highlight is because birth rates have been declining, our kindergarten enrollments have been declining, and that trend started about 2018. And so as we push through those higher cohorts that entered our system before 2018, we're replacing them with lower cohorts of kindergarten. So I think we're down to like this year's sophomores were the last of the cohorts that came in with about 200 more students than we've seen since that kindergarten class. And so I alluded to the cost deficiencies between or the FTE and the cost deficiencies between what the state funds and what we actually employ. So this is kind of a longitudinal graph that shows over the last, about 8 years, the orange line is the cost of salary and benefits that we actually incur compared to what the state funds. So those are stated as percentages. So in 2017-18, for instance, the state funded about 65% of our actual costs in salaries and benefits in basic education. You see it spikes the following year. That was the McCleary resolution. And so the state stepped up and paid a greater percentage of those salary and benefits, but then subsequent to that, you'll see that it started to deteriorate steadily till 2023-24. We were right back at 65%. The blue line is the FTE, and you can see that's a little more constant and steady, but still a slight decline over the spectrum of this time. The last year, the 24-25, you'll see that those all dramatically increased. And so we'll see on the next slide, that's not a result of the state stepping up and properly and adequately funding basic education staff. That is actually a result of our reductions. And so when we, again, waited as long as we could to face the reality that we could no longer afford roughly 250 positions, those reductions increase the percentage, but that's not the strategy that we would have preferred to get those percentages more in line with what the state should have been funding all along. So as we contemplate the 25-26 budget, there are some things that are coming into focus. I mentioned most of our work is really on hold until we get some legislative guidance as to what our funding factors would be. But we do know that our enrollment will continue to slightly decrease as a result of pushing out, again, those last couple high school groups are a little bit bigger than the incoming kindergarten classes. We know that when we have enrollment fluctuations plus or minus, that we do have kind of some built-in budget right sizing is, I guess, one way to frame it. If we're contracting, then we can keep the same class sizes with less staff if we have fewer students. And then the converse is true. If we were increasing enrollment, we would expect to have more staff just to serve that expanded enrollment base. Um, That felt like that felt very editorial, I have. I'll move a little quicker. So special education, I've mentioned a couple different times, and again, we have a slide that dives a little deeper, but that's certainly a known variable based on the last several years. We know that the costs are going to increase likely faster than the state funding increases. MSOC, again, drove that point home on the previous slide. MSOC, I'm sorry, is the non-salary staff cost. So it's would be things like insurance, textbooks, utilities. And then we know that we have open contracts with 3 of our employment groups. And so what we don't know is what the resolution of those contracts will look like. Variables that are not yet known that are significant are legislative funding. And again, I've alluded to that. We're hoping for a much more positive result that looks more like the Senate versus the House. And then federal funding impact, as Dr. Snell previewed. We don't know what might come to us from the federal government, but we need to be certainly monitoring and tracking whatever the impacts could be financially. And then lastly, as we've used all of our excess fund balance is kind of the cash reserves, the savings account of the district. We've used all of that to sustain positions and services as long as we possibly could. But at some point in time, we're going to need to save up a little bit for the next rainy day. And so we also have significant cash flow challenges because the state doesn't pay us at the same rate in which our expenditures are incurred. So with that, I'll just spend a couple more minutes on special ed just because it's really the significant legislative platform that we spent a lot of time trying to advocate and help our legislatures understand that we're not just wasting money. These are real costs and real impacts to students and staff. What we know is that more students, a higher percentage, are receiving special education services than in previous years. There's probably a lot of social dynamics and other contributing factors to that, but we just know based on the last several years that that is a predictable trend. State and federal funding are not keeping up with the needs and the expectations that we have around inclusionary practices, for instance. It's a very great, noble ambition to have all of our students learning together and supporting one another. But there are supports and challenges in creating successful experiences for all those students in that environment. And the state and federal government are supportive of the concept, but not putting their money where their mouth is. And then even in the areas where there have been increased funding, it's not keeping up with the incremental cost. A few examples of deficiencies that I think paint hopefully a clear picture of what we're talking about and why we think this is such a important and really moral issue for the legislature to grapple with is currently we have a cap of 16% of our students is all that the legislature will recognize and acknowledge for funding. So as soon as we eclipse 16% of our total student body, from the legislative perspective, those students cease to have any special needs or and we don't believe that that is appropriate or consistent with the state constitution or our moral obligation to serve our students. Secondarily, there is a safety net for our students with the highest cost and the most significant interventions and supports required. However, structurally, there's an element of it that we have to spend basically twice the money we get for that student before the safety net will kick in. So there's this gap between when the traditional funding stops and when the safety net kicks in, that as we get more and more students that are in the safety net area, it's a great thing that we're able to get that second wave of funding. But when we have to meet that gap, it becomes more and more challenging with our relatively fixed local funds. And then to kind of underscore the concepts that I just shared on the previous slide, what does this look like in terms of real dollars to Vancouver? Over the last 6 years, the underfunding of special ed has accumulated to just under $44 million. So even if the state had met half of that unmet need, that would have significantly changed our outlook last year and certainly in future years. Similarly, on the MSOC, it's not as big of a number, but it's also proportionately probably a similar deficiency in terms of the state's acknowledgement of the true cost. The accumulation over 6 years of our MSOC is, and this, I'm sorry, this is just utilities and insurance. It's not capturing some other non-employee related costs that we have, but those totaled up to $7.1 million. So on the next slide, you can see if we have the underfunding and special education and insurance in utilities alone, that would have been $51 million over the last 6 years. That would have, again, very dramatically changed our realities as we developed last year's budget and as we're trying to thread the needle on this year's budget. So advocacy, and I promise I'm wrapping up here. Advocacy, which is where we can have our best impact in terms of what outcomes we'll have for our students and staff next year, is to speak to our legislators. And as they're finishing their negotiations and contemplating what budget bill they're going to move forward, it's not too late to share with them the impact. Hopefully what you've gathered from the slides tonight is that special education and those insurance and utilities, there's really no justification for not addressing the funding that is clearly deficient, and the paramount duty of the state and the legislature is to meet the needs of our K-12 schools and our students. So I would encourage you, to the extent that you have the opportunity, to engage our legislators or other significant policymakers, that the needs remain, and until there is a solution or at least incremental investments, we're going to continue to see an attrition and deterioration of our ability to meet those needs. Last thing I would say is the special legislative session, which could be required after April 27th. We'll hope that they get their work done on time, but if they do go to a special session, what that does is it really puts us in a very, very difficult spot, because we can't sit back until the middle or end of May to start executing staffing plans. There's kind of a musical chair game that has to happen as we every year kind of rebalance staff between one school or one program to another. If the legislature goes into special session, we'll have no choice but to start that process with more of a pessimistic view, just in case. And that would expose staff to potentially a lot of anxiety and frustration, and it'll potentially represent a lot of wasted effort and work if they come through with the proper budget at the end. So I would just encourage you to watch that. We can certainly advocate that they finish their work on time, but if they don't, then it does put us in a really untenable situation of possibly having to start addressing reductions that might not ultimately be necessary by the end of May. And I think that's pretty much it. I guess just for some context, I think I mentioned the worst case scenario we think is closer to 2% of our total budget if we get a really, really disastrously poor state budget. For context, last year we reduced 9% of our total budget. So it's certainly something that we're not comfortable unless we absolutely have to go down that path. But thankfully, it's not going to be anywhere close to the scope of last year's budget reductions. And then lastly, because it is sometimes a misunderstood factor, when we talk about reduction in force, that's typically a term that's kind of have legal connotations with our certificated staff, with our teachers and our counselors and teacher librarians and that group. And there's some legal processes that have to be executed by certain dates there. We will not be in the reduction in force process with our certificated staff this year. We likely will have some contraction just because of enrollment, but we should be able to achieve that through attrition, the normal retirements, the normal leaves of absence that we have from folks. We'll be able to meet the reductions there. On some of our other positions, classified, administrative, again, if we're at the 2%, then we're certainly going to have to look at positions for next year. And again, they just have different processes. So I just want to be cautious when we say there's no reduction in force. That applies to the certificated and hopefully to no one, but there could be classified and administrative reductions as a result of the kind of that more unfortunate scenario that we have to be prepared for. So I think with that, I'm finally over.
Thank you. And can I just clarify when you say it's likely that we won't have a reduction in force? Well, but that doesn't mean there won't be positions lost. It just means we won't have to reduce anybody from the positions, but the positions can still be lost.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I just, couple comments. Brett, thank you. I appreciate the thorough review of that. I just wanted to restate the importance, as a district, we do a lot of advocacy to our local senators and representatives. And we have some great education focused leaders in Southwest Washington. And as a district working with other districts in our region, we advocate collectively, we advocate as directors, as school district leaders. But I think, you know, our state legislature is they're grappling with hard budget decisions, right? You know, it's a grappling with everything as a priority, and how do you determine what the greatest priority is? So I think hearing from taxpayers and voters is a really strong message to restate the importance that education matters in Washington state. So, you know, if you have the ability to make the phone call or send the email, I really encourage you to do so, because it has always been the paramount duty of the Washington State Constitution, and that's what we believe in. So one other thing, you know, with these discrepancies and these funding gaps that we see with all the charts that Brett shared, that is growing over time. And we are grateful in Vancouver to have support from our community. We pass our levies and bonds because we are a community that supports education. And we have some neighboring districts that do not necessarily have all the same support in their communities. And when you don't have that local levy funding to fall back on, the funding gaps, those discrepancies, means lost services to students. And so, you know, as we consider what this means, not just in Vancouver, but statewide, there's rural districts, there's larger districts, there's districts that just don't have as much success or community support, and that really creates a disparity in education in our state. So just something to think about as you consider advocating to our state legislature.
So tonight we are presenting our excellent awards. If you are being recognized, please walk to the podium when you are introduced to receive your certificate and pose for a photo. Once everyone has been honored, we will also take a group photo. So you take your own photo, then just wait to the side, and then we'll take a photo with everyone. If you choose to leave after this portion of the meeting or after we recognize students as well, we ask that you exit quietly so that we can continue on with the business portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Decker. We do have a number of Employee Excellence Awards, some various different staff recognitions and student recognitions, and we understand that probably a lot of you are here for that tonight, so thank you for being here. The Employee Excellence Awards are monthly awards, and the following employees were selected by a committee of their peers for commitment to the students and staff of VPS. These recipients were among the many outstanding nominees who create a caring environment and positive workplace through their exceptional efforts. If you would like more information about each recipient or would like to nominate somebody, you can find that on our district website. So our first nominee this morning or this evening, and please give them a round of applause and then they can come up and I'll read nice things about them while they have to stand and look at you, which is a part of the process, is Grace Borowski. Empathetic and selfless, Grace is a vital member of the counseling team at Thomas Jefferson Middle School. As a mental health therapist, she provides crucial one-on-one and group support and consistently aids the counseling team in crisis situations. Grace is dedicated to ensuring the safety of our most vulnerable students, skillfully communicating with families to make sure of their well-being at home and at school. Grace's exceptional skills and ability to connect with students are evident. Her nominator recalls a recent incident in which Grace calmly sat with two students on the floor during a crisis, listening deeply to their concerns and developing a plan of action that de-escalated the situation and made both students feel heard and understood. Time and again, Grace's remarkable care and empathy shine through, making a tangible difference in the community at Thomas Jefferson. Thank you, Grace. Congratulations. Our next nominee is Tylee Hunter. Tylee is a fifth grade teacher at Hazeldale Elementary. Stands out as as an exceptional colleague and cheerleader for staff and students alike. In the classroom, he prioritizes building strong, supportive relationships with his fifth graders, nurturing an environment where they feel confident and empowered to excel. His commitment extends beyond the elementary classroom as he generously dedicates his time to the girls' basketball program at Columbia River High School. Tylee cultivates joy, fosters a sense of community, and consistently demonstrates genuine care for those around him. As his nominator shares, if you have ever met Mr. Hunter, you know he is the best cheerleader and coach around. Thank you, Tylee. I also want to note that Tylee is a part of a force of teachers that were so passionate about outdoor school that a couple of years ago brought forward a proposal which has led to hundreds of kids getting to experience outdoor school with a vision that all of our elementary kids would. And that wouldn't happen without leaders like Tylee. So congratulations. Our final Employee Excellence Award winner is Luana Ingram from Fort Vancouver High School. Luana, a math teacher at Fort, has been with our district for nearly 2 decades. During this time, she has had a profound impact on the lives of hundreds of students, including Isaac, a Fort student who put her name forward for this recognition. To understand the extent of Luana's impact, we will share a bit from Isaac's nomination. Miss Luana holds up our school. I love that line. Miss Luana holds up our school. She personally sees that every single student put under her care excels. I'm so confident in myself, and I have learned more from her than what I have from any other teacher. She teaches math, life lessons, and so much more. I don't know what so many of our students would do without her. She has personally made sure so many students from our school have been able to graduate, and she is amazing. She deserves this award and so much more. Thank you, Miss Luana, for supporting me, my friends, my classmates, and my school community. You deserve the world. Thank you, Luana. Congratulations. And as typical Luana, who I've known for a long time, when I told her congratulations tonight, she first said, well, the student that nominated me is just an incredible person. Like, yeah, I think you're an incredible teacher. Okay, we're going to continue with some student and staff recognitions. Our next staff recognition is Dr. Brian Matheson. Brian, could you come forward? We'd like to congratulate Dr. Matheson for being awarded the Washington School Counselor Association's District Director or Administrator Award. Brian is our Assistant Director of Career and College Readiness. The award nominee groups shared that the following about Brian at the awards ceremony earlier this year. Brian shows dedication to the academic and personal growth of school counselors and regularly collaborates with many organizations and higher education institutions to advocate for school counselors. His deep understanding of the standards used for counselors, combined with his ability to provide thoughtful guidance and support, has had a profound impact on his colleagues. His enthusiasm for professional development and his efforts to foster collaboration with the district make him a truly deserving candidate. Congratulations, Brian.
Or you can have it. Our next award winner is Dr. Aaron Lark. Dr. Lark is a science teacher at Skyview High School and has been recognized as a Washington State finalist for the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, the highest distinction awarded by the U.S. government to K-12 STEM teachers. Erin's selection follows a rigorous application process that highlighted her strong content expertise and ability to excel with various learners and in different educational environments. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Lark. Okay. So now we're into some of our student recognition. And I want to congratulate the following Skyview students who have been recognized by the National Center for Women in Information Technology Aspirations in Computing Program. And if we could have these students come forward when I call your name. Eileen, Adele, Suki, Kim, Yulin, Della, and I don't think Paige was able to attend. So if we could give them a round of applause and have them come forward. The Aspirations Award honors high school students for their computing-related achievements and interests and encourages them to pursue their passions. Award recipients are selected based on their aptitude and aspirations in technology and computing as demonstrated by their computing experience, computing-related activities, leadership experience, persistent, and future plans. I don't think I've ever said computing so many times in one phrase here. Our special thanks go to advisor Kim Hansen for supporting these students. Is Kim here as well? Could you come forward too? And we're going to do a picture and then I'm going to give Miss Hansen all the certificates so that we can make sure that you guys get them. Okay. Okay.
Our next group is the Washington State Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. And we have two gold medal winners. Congratulations to Columbia Rivers FCCLA Club for earning a gold medal at the Washington State competition. We're going to invite club advisor Lauren Hang to introduce the students and say a few words about this achievement. There you are.
I'm gonna see you come in. Okay, good, you're with me. Good evening, my name's Lauren Hine. I'm a family and consumer science teacher over at River and as well as the FCCLA advisor. This is our first year that River has had FCCLA and in our district has FCCLA, so it's very exciting that we've had such a successful year. As an advisor, it's just been really cool to watch them truly take ownership of their leadership and learning throughout this experience. They really were gung-ho about it. I did not know what I was doing this year. It was a learning curve, and they were like, no, we want to do this. We want to jump in 2 feet. And so they chose the competitive event Focus on Children, where they designed and developed a dental hygiene program for elementary students, went to Boys and Girls Club, presented it with them, had the kids doing these hands-on lessons, hands-on activities, and just to really help them learn that how important their dental hygiene is. But in that process, not only helping the children in our community, they really built their own confidence and their communication skills and teamwork working with people in the community. It was just really awesome to see overall. So they earned, like they said, gold medals at regionals and state. And I am just so incredibly proud of them. And I'd like to introduce both of them. They might say a few words, one of them might. But this is Emily Shaver and Leona Lee.
I just kind of wanted to say, like, FCCLA has been honestly a really great experience. Since it's my senior year, I only get like one opportunity. And so I really wanted to like embrace that opportunity. And it really helped me like step outside my comfort zone. Like, I got to work with a variety of people in not only our local community, like with different dentists and like professionals and children. And then I also got to like work with people like across the state at like state competition. And we just got to build multiple like friendships and relationships along the way. And it was really impactful for me, and I really hope the club can continue its success in the future.
Kind of piggybacking on what Emily said, our FCCLA journey has been such an incredible experience, and we've learned so much about leadership, community involvement, and also working with a variety of different people. I'm so happy that we got to participate in such a memorable and meaningful experience, and it's something that we will forever be grateful for.
All right, everybody can also scoot this way just a little bit. All right, good. Okay, and 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
So we're going to continue on this same club, and we're going to recognize the Hudson's Bay FCCLA Club, who also had a great showing at the state competition. Please join me in welcoming Sabria, Sloan, Aisling, and Samantha, and their advisor, An Trong, to introduce the students and speak briefly about their accomplishment.
Good evening. My name is Anne Trong, and I am grateful for the support of FCCLA. FCCLA stands for Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, and it was previously known as FHA. This is the first year that FCCLA has been in Vancouver School District and at Hudson Bay. So we had 2 teams go to state and compete for different competitions. The first team was, the first team competed for nutrition and wellness, and then the second team for sports nutrition. Samantha Crawford placed with silver in sports nutrition, and then Sabria Folsom and Aisling Rowan placed for gold. And we have one member that's not here, Sloan Casanova. He could not make it because he's at a track meet today. But the students that sorry. The students that placed gold are also going to Orlando, Florida to compete at the national level and show their project off. So very proud of them. And then I think Sabria is going to say some words.
Something. Our projects were able to promote better nutrition and wellness for our school's athletes. We hope our athletes will use these lessons after high school and lead happy, healthy lives. I'm really proud of my teammates for starting the club at FCCLA. This is the first year at Hudson's Bay, sorry. And just, you know, having this experience together, it was so fun, and I'm really happy that I happened to be here for it. Thank you.
Everybody can flip their thing around so that the sticky notes on the back. You can also open it. You can flip it around and feel at the bottom. Here we go. Alrighty. And this is one, two, three.
We got a lot of students to recognize tonight, so I appreciate your patience. The next group is the Future Farmers of America. Oops. Something happened there, sorry. There we are. So congratulations to the Future Farmers of America Club at Hudson's Bay. They had a great showing at the Washington State competition, earning 2 state champion titles among other awards. Steve Lorenz, advisor and horticulture teacher at Bay, is going to introduce the students and say a few remarks about FFA. So if we could have Hope, Helene, Gracie, Nova, Alice, Anthony, Sid, Val, Jessica, Alice again, Nova, Hope. I think those are all of you guys come up, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Lorenz for some remarks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So not all of our members can make it tonight, but I would like to acknowledge them and say their names. Superintendent Snell, school board members, families, and guests. I would like to thank you for honoring these young people today by achieving both 4th and 1st place finishes at the state FFA nursery landscape competitions. These individuals have demonstrated their hard work and dedication. I would like to recognize and introduce the following individuals. These first individuals make up our state championship team. Not here tonight is Alice Huskins, and Alice was the individual state champion. Next is Nova Benson, wave Nova. Nova is our FFA president, and she placed individually as 3rd in the state. Hope Coonrad is not here. She placed 4th in the state. And Helene, right there, wave Helene. Helene was 11th in the state, and Gracie Dietrich, right here, was 13th place. And those individuals' teams, their overall scores allowed them to be state champions. Also, we have individuals up here that placed 4th. Anthony Gonzalez is not here today, but Anthony was the 5th place student. So if you kind of do the math, we went 1, 3, 4, 5 in the state with the top individuals. Sid Huff is here. Sid's right there. Wave, Sid. You might recognize Sid Board. She was up here for a month ago for being a state champion in bowling. So she was a part of that program. Val Ramos and Jessica Malone made up the rest of the 4th place team. So moving forward, the way it works in FFA, the top team goes back to nationals. So the top 4 individuals of these teams will be representing the state of Washington back in Indianapolis. So Anthony Gonzalez at fourth or fifth, Hope Coonrad at fourth, Nova Benson at third, and Alice Huskins will represent the state of Washington at the national convention. They will compete, and this is the same thing that these other individuals have done. Over a 2-day period against 49 other state championship teams and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So it's a big deal when you have 51 state championship teams in the same room. It's competitive. So the nursery landscape, if you're not familiar, nursery landscape competition includes tests for general knowledge, landscape design, identification of plants, pests, tools, supplies, and teamwork to solve 10 different industry practicums. There will be over 75,000 kids at the internet or at our convention. It is the largest student convention in the United States, and we do have over 1 million students in FFA. So it's a great deal and a great honor for these kids. So I'd like to have you congratulations to all these hardworking individuals. Thank you very much.
So that does conclude our recognition tonight. We thank everyone for being here. I know Director Decker will make some announcements, but it is a good time if you don't want to stay for the whole meeting, you can start that transition. Thank you all.
Now it is time for our public comments statements. Public comments is the time in our meeting where the board and administrative staff welcome comments from the public. If you would like to address the board and did not have an opportunity to sign in at the start of the meeting, please do so now. You may continue to sign in at any time during the public comments portion of our meeting. We ask that you approach the podium and state your name and affiliation with the district for the record. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. When you hear the chime, please conclude your remarks. Please don't make me cut you off. I really don't like to do that. If you have materials or additional comments you would like the board to review, please hand them to the staff at the back of the boardroom. This information will be provided to the superintendent and to the board. Because most matters require fact-finding and review, and the state's Open Public Meetings Act restricts deliberation on topics that have not been placed on the publicly noticed agenda in advance, the board does not respond to any public comments made at the time. If follow-up action is necessary, the board will ask the superintendent to work with the administrative staff to consider the information and respond accordingly. As a regular business meeting of the board, we expect everyone in attendance to conduct themselves professionally and courteously during the meeting. Speakers are also expected to be respectful. The board asks that personnel comments be submitted in writing rather than during the public comment. Please also remember that your words have an impact and that you, not the school district, are responsible for what you say during public comment. We caution all speakers that it is possible that your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. If you are unsure of the potential legal effect of your remarks, you should seek independent legal advice. In any case, we ask that you help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. We also ask the audience to refrain from clapping, cheering, or commenting while others give public comments, whether you're in support or against. We recognize that there are diverse beliefs and feelings across our community, but one thing that we have in common is that we all want to do what is best for our children. We are here today to work towards their future. Disruptive conduct by speakers or the audience may cause the meeting to be adjourned and all audience members to be removed. Finally, the board appreciates, listens, and cares about the broad range of perspectives in our community. Thank you in advance to everyone who provides public comment. And I believe we have one person on Zoom. Oh, okay. So first up, I have Alana Wendell. Did I say that right? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Elena, okay.
Hi, my name is Elena Windle. I'm in my 12th year of teaching at Hudson's Bay High School. It is a place that I consider a home away from home. One of the most respectful and committed staffs that I've ever had the privilege to work with. But this year has been a hard year for our staff and for our students. We do feel collectively that there have been some balls dropped in terms of the Shad Gatson situation that has happened at Hudson's Bay. We appreciate the support from the district office in the form of Jim Gray the day after winter break when we first learned about this. We did not appreciate when the emails dropped the day before conferences, which, and the emails were pretty graphic. There was no support from district about what to tell parents because parents were asking us about the contents of the reports that the detectives or the investigators sent us. So that has been a really troubling situation at Bay where we feel like students are getting a lot of support, but staff, people who have worked with this man for 15 plus years are not really getting the kind of mental and emotional support that we need. Students are also pretty angry. I had a student mention to me yesterday, last week, nope, week before that, last week of spring break, mentioned that her parents are taking her out of Bay for her senior year because they do not want her to be learning in a place where children are getting raped. And that's really hard to hear. So we are looking for some additional support for our teachers and our staff at Hudson's Bay High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, John Gerard.
John Gerard, owner of Quail Homes here in Vancouver, and we have a nonprofit called Careers in Construction, Southwest Washington. Just want to give you an update on what we've been working on. The toolbox events, that's what this represents right here. It's starting to hit full steam this week for those who want to attend. These are built by high school kids prefabbing them at Hudson's Bay, Columbia River, Fort, and Skyview this year. Sacagawea's on the 10th at 12:30. Washington Elementary, the 11th at 9:30. Harney, the 16th at 11:30. And Hauk, 4/25, April 25th at 9:30. Could be maybe 800 of these boxes will be made, and pure chaos when that happens. It's a lot of fun. These awards that I saw is very moving. I've gotten to know Steve Lorenz as we're building the Skilled Trade Center at Hudson's Bay. And really, that's the vision for these construction kids, is to do exactly what you saw. And to give you an indication, there's a record number of students that went to state. You know, greatness doesn't happen overnight, and they learn some lessons, and a lot of them are coming back, and we hope to see them be recognized here next year as they keep improving. Some of you may know that I put on a grade 13 event where it's a hiring event with the top students in our area in construction. They'll be hosted at Hudson's Bay's new Skilled Trade Center. We'll have 40 plus employers there with kids ready to go to work. Think of it as speed dating. And we should see I'll bet you there'll be 70 kids there and probably 40 plus employers. If you guys want to attend, free lunch on us. The grand opening of the Skilled Trade Center at Hudson's Bay is on the 20th at 11:30. Fort Vancouver building, we are underway. Building permits are forthcoming, but a lot of the underground work's been done. And the donor for Fort, I took him on a little tour and his representative last week. His quote was real simple: "We need one at every high school." And I said, well, okay. We're going to be a little under budget at Fort. How about if we start some advanced work on planning? And the idea is to get one at River that shares at Skyview. So we are in planning phases right now. The funding is there to put a building where those high schools would both share. And it'll be probably 2 in 1. So instead of the Fort and Bay building being separate, think of them together. And then I have a website that just got started. I'll pass some cards to the board members. Hand them out. One of the key features on here is what's really missing. It's easy for a pathway for kids to get to college, not so much into the skilled trades. It's eclectic at best. And part of this is an exploration feature, and then the matchmaking where employers will have their information and students can upload their resumes. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Next up is Rachel Hendricks. Did I say that wrong as well? I'm sorry. I almost said Rochelle, but
So yes, good evening. My name is Rochelle Hendricks. I'm a Hudson's Bay graduate and a current Bay staff member. And my intent tonight is not to question your care, but questions regarding actions moving forward. On March 19th, an email was sent out to Hudson's Bay High School staff, parents, and students regarding the investigation into the grooming and sexual misconduct that took place over multiple years at Hudson's Bay. In this email, the school board and district leadership wrote, "We cannot change what happened, but we can be more accountable, continue learning from it, and remain committed to making our schools as safe as possible." If this is the plan moving forward, as a member of the Bay staff and community, I have some questions that need to be answered. If you are more accountable, tell us what are the modified roles of the 2 school leaders who took voluntary leave, and will they return to their previous roles next school year? If you are more accountable, identify the district leaders, former or current, that failed to see and act on Mr. Gadsden's full pattern of harm. The 2 school leaders cannot bear the burden for the district's failure. If you are more accountable, if there's a principal vacancy at Hudson's Bay next school year, what will be the process for hiring a new head principal, and how will teachers, students, and parents be involved in this process? If you are learning, please tell us how you plan to increase collaboration and a culture of openness. When will the board and district leadership have a meeting with Bay teachers to increase this collaboration and openness? If you are learning and you are believing in good faith that this wouldn't happen again, what will you or are you doing differently already to ensure this? And as my colleague Elena said, if you are committed to making our schools as safe as possible, why was an email sent on Wednesday, March 19th that explicitly outlined the harm done to Hudson's Bay students and the district's inability to protect them, without considering the need for district representation 24 hours later at parent-teacher conferences? Because of this, Hudson's Bay teachers were left to navigate and respond to parent anger and questions that resulted from this email. While the school board is claiming more accountability, more learning, and a commitment to safety, the students and staff at Hudson's Bay experience continued harm and neglect. I look forward to your answers to my questions.
thank you. Next up, Lauren Zeff.
My name is Lauren Zeff. I am a grandmother to several kids in the school system, and I just really give thanks for the national anthem being played. I love the celebration of excellence of the teachers and administrators and our students. And it makes me feel though like I'm living in two different universes, because today I feel again like I need to speak for the kids who are struggling. And so one young man says, bro, whatever. I mean, do what you want. I don't care. That's the outward statement of the internal adjustment to the DEI agenda. One young woman says, I hate going to school now. Everyone's angry. Everyone's mean. There's very little authority. No one gets in trouble for acting out. I hate it. That's the voice of one giving up on her own education. One girl says, green is now my favorite color because it's neutral. No more pink, no more purple. She doesn't want to be made fun of. That is the voice of compromise and one giving up on her true colors. So I wonder, what is the true agenda of the DEI message and the sexualization of our kids? I see confusion, secretism, potentially permanent physical changes to young bodies. I feel it comes down to a moral issue, and that the DEI agenda includes gross negligence of our children's real mental health issues. I'm not against transgender people. I am against, though, the transing of our children. I know this isn't a popular stance, and it's hard to say this and to come here month after month. The bottom line is, I'm glad to hear that whatever Washington State has met as far as federal guidelines goes. I hope that that means the DEI agenda will be removed from the curriculum, that common sense will be reinstated in the curriculum, that our kids will be put first, and learning again how to think critically, how to read, how to write, how to do math and science, how to succeed, rather than the turning of words and ideas to conform to, I don't know what is actually going on, but it's not good. It is not right. And so that is where I stand. I stand for our kids. I stand for health and well-being. I stand for excellence. I stand for respect and honor. And I just pray that whatever happens going forward, that you'll find a way to fill in the holes where our kids' learning has been broken through COVID and all the other things that I tried to put together a team who would come in and help, and I couldn't get traction, but I just hope and pray the kids will get what they need.
Thank you. Next up, Kristen Stockwell.
Hi, I am Kristen Stockwell. I'm the enrollment clerk at Fruit Valley Elementary School here at VPS, and the proud mom of 2 VPS graduates. I hadn't intended to speak tonight, but I plan to spend the next many evenings in my garden and most of my weekends fighting for social justice. So here we are. I think it's been about a year since I spoke to you guys last. I was so heartbroken with the reduction in workforce that I got myself a golden retriever, Lou. He's my riff dog, and so I found a lot of joy in him, as have the Fruit Valley students. I wanted to just talk tonight because when we were going over the budget, you are going to be negotiating with my union and the administrators union. Oh, and also I wanted to take this chance to thank Dr. Snell and the board. I think that we've navigated a pretty awful year. And I think that this has been an incredible group of people to lead us through it. And funny, you're a little nervous when you're not mad. So anyways, my point being is that what I do at Fruit Valley is enroll the kids. The teams that I've joined, one of which is the student-centered equity team. And I think it is the most valuable thing that's happened in our little community in a long time. The connections I've made with the families and the students are what is bringing them back to our schools. I think that there's a lot of fear for a lot of our families right now. And if I can be that face, greeting them every day and letting them know that their families are safe in our district, that's a big deal. And that's something that might keep our enrollment up. I think with us, the enrollment clerks, we're one of the lowest paid staff in the buildings. You get a lot of bang for your buck. And when you talk about negotiating for the administrators, you might consider who helps those administrators stay standing some days. And that's us. And Big Lou, my riff dog. So please don't forget us during bargaining. We're pretty cheap and we do an awful lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Yes. Tracy Chen.
Hello, Dr. Snell, members of the school board. My name is Tracy Chen, and I'm the teacher librarian at Skyview High School. I'm a little bit disappointed and very appalled to the response to the investigation into the latest VPS sexual assault case. You may notice that some of us are wearing teal ribbons. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This district has two schools, Hudson's Bay and Skyview, with documented sexual assault victims. These crimes were committed by VPS staff members. You stated in your response that over the past 5 years, reporting structures have changed and systems are significantly stronger than they were at the time these incidences occurred. Our annual Safe Schools training and mandatory reporting laws have always required us to report any abuse or indication of abuse. In fact, as an educator, I've called CPS at least 3 times on suspected abuse or neglect. I'm sure that some of our board members who are educators and also mandatory reporters have also called CPS. I'm confused as to how the reporting structure has changed in 5 years, as stated in your response. It has always been to call CPS if abuse is suspected. These reporting laws have not changed in my 26 years at education. Your statement to the community is vague, and it shows a disregard for everyone in our community. It says that improvements have been made to training, communication, and investigative processes. It also states that we want to reaffirm our commitment to transparency, accountability, and most importantly, to the safety of every student. In your commitment to transparency, can you tell us exactly what reporting structures have changed? Can you specifically explain your new investigative processes? Can you tell us what improvements have been made to training? As a staff member, I have not seen any changes over the past 5 years. If you've got these new improved measures for safety, why have you not shared them with your staff and students? I also would like to question the district on the lack of support offered to Bay after the reports were released. The reports were horrific. The fact that the district did not send administrators or other support to the staff after the report was made public is shameful. They went through a significant and traumatic experience that warranted a third-party investigation, but it sounds like it wasn't even enough to warrant support from our district office when it was released. As victims of this Skyview voyeurism case, we at least had the opportunity to see our offender punished. We were able to read victim impact statements at his sentencing and see him taken away in handcuffs. Because of the inaction of VPS, the victims from Bay will never get to see their perpetrator held responsible or share their victim impact statements. This is heartbreaking. We deserve to feel safe in our schools. We deserve to have our students protected. We deserve a school board who will fight to support and protect all of us. We deserve to know what changes have been made to ensure that sexual assaults do not happen again in VPS. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Denmark Witcher? Did I say that correctly?
Hi. Denmark, which are, excuse me, Hauk neighborhood, Vancouver's historic neighborhood. Retired science teacher and supporter of DEI. If I were to name one synonym for DEI, it would be welcome. 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 And I insist, as an educator, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, I insist that every student feel welcome. Number one priority, welcome.
Thank you. And that concludes our public. Is there another? Oh, okay. Got a few more people signing up at the back. Okay. I have Jeannie Fedorovich. And I know how to pronounce that name.
You actually pronounced it perfectly, which is
I
kind of amazing. Though there are two of us in the district, so.
I know.
So my name is Jeannie Fedorovich, and I am writing as a graduate of Fort Vancouver High School from 1987 and a career-long teacher. I started in 1992 at Alki, and I am currently teaching at Skyview. I wanted to come and speak to you because I've sent an email twice and I only received one response late last night and felt compelled to address this in person. But I also am wanting to address the sexual assault that took place at Hudson's Bay High School. I also am a victim of the James Matson case, and like Tracy Chun said, I feel for those victims who will never have the opportunity to face the person who assaulted them in court like we were at least able to do. As a victim of that case, I guess I've seen the deposition of several of our district members, and knowing everything that I know, I guess I should not have been surprised that people that were in leadership positions at Bay are not being held accountable, but I was surprised and I was very, very disappointed. The outside allegations said they failed at their jobs, and I'd hoped that you would do better. Allowing those people who were responsible to remain in their jobs, even in a modified capacity, it's not only a slap in the face to those of us who work hard every single day at doing the right thing, but it underscores what anti-public education people fear about public schools. People already suspect our profession is full of predators and administrators who just push everything along and under the rug. I know I would not feel comfortable working for anybody who had been responsible for that case. I currently trust my administrative team impeccably at Skyview. That has not always been the case, and I can speak from experience that if you don't trust your administrators, it's not a good working environment. Last week, when I wrote the email, it was last week, but when the reports were emailed to students and I had students, I listened to them read these graphic details in class to each other and look at me and say, why is nobody getting in trouble for this? And I had nothing to say to them. And I could literally see in their face as they looked around and they looked at teachers and they thought, well, if it's going on there, is it going on other places? They asked me about the James Matson case at Skyview because they are also aware that they potentially are victims there. And they said, was anybody in a position to know that he could have been doing something bad? And I wasn't able to speak to them about that case, and I felt like a liar not speaking to them about it. By inaction, the board is undermining the public's trust in teachers, our kids' trust in us, their trust in me every single day. Thank you very much. Please do better.
Thank you. Isaac Denon.
Hello, Dr. Snell, board. As you know, I'm Isaac Dennett. I'm a senior at Fort Vancouver High School. This is okay. And I just wanted to, I've been trying to keep up with Washington OSPI's response into a lot of the federal demands. And I just wanted to tell you something that you're doing right. I feel like a lot of times there isn't enough voice when you're doing something that I think is good. So I wanted to talk about, I am happy that you, and by extension, the rest of Washington, is standing together and complying with the federal demands in a way that our people actually want. DEI helps everyone. In my school, we are a collection of LGBTQ students. We are a collection of various racial minorities. All of our young women want to have a future and they want to have rights. And I am happy that Vancouver School District and the rest of Washington is doing its best to uphold all of the educational rights of its students, and I could not be happier. I know at my school, all of our students want a safe place, and for school is their safe place. A lot of my friends come from broken homes. My friends have gone through terrible pasts, and it makes me happy that the district is doing its best to uphold all of their futures and give them the best shot at life that they can. Just wanted to thank the board. I want you to keep doing what you're doing. It's doing pretty good so far. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Isaac. Okay. All right, we're just double checking. Oh. Let's keep going. All right. Jamie Gonzalez.
Hi, my name is Jamie Gonzalez, and I am a social studies and English teacher at Hudson's Bay High School. And first of all, I'd like to begin by thanking you for listening to our concerns regarding the lack of communication and for coming and speaking to us, Dr. Snow, before our staff meeting on the day that the report about SHAD was set to be released. I know that was a difficult thing to do, and I appreciated our previous concerns over communication being heard. My biggest concern going forward is identifying how to keep this from ever happening again. SHAD's not the first sexual predator in our state, district, or even school, but I would like him to be the last. If the teachers union is responsible for protecting this type of behavior, please expose them so that the membership can work to make changes. I don't want to support a union that keeps people like Sarah Cotton Clummer from keeping her position and protects people like Shad Gatson. I also feel dissatisfied that all the blame for this situation with Shad seems to be resting on two people. This is a failure at the district level, and yet human resources and district leadership are hardly mentioned and aren't facing any consequences. Shad Gatson, two former Skyview teachers, and a former Geyser teacher, and others were not sexual predators because they rushed through or didn't pay attention to what every employee needs to know. They were predators because there was something wrong with them. The question remains, what steps can staff take to identify and report concerning behaviors? And how can we empower our female students to identify and report grooming and other inappropriate behaviors? Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe we have Sabrina Sheehy online.
I'm just trying to, there we go, start video.
Okay, go right ahead, Sabrina.
My name is Sabrina Sheehy. I am a parent of two children in Vancouver Public Schools, specifically located within the Hudson's Bay High School boundary. I'm also a mental health therapist and a social worker who has worked with children and families in the Vancouver community, specifically community mental health, and currently work with victims of various forms of trauma. Let's not mince words. The recent investigation into the district found gross negligence of administration to effectively expel a sexual predator in their employ, whom they had already identified as problematic. You will not have enrollment if you do not keep kids safe. You will lose funding and have worsening budget issues if people do not trust that they can send their children to Vancouver Public Schools. If you do not address this, none of the other discussions about budgets will matter. Your apologies mean nothing if it is not accompanied by change. What is your plan? Why are Bill Oman and Val Seeley still employed by this district? When a coach's team has too many losses, do they not get fired? Or are we just going to move them to a different parish? I don't see any accountability. I don't see any repercussions for the failures of the leadership to see through their most important task, protecting their students. I'm really tired of seeing people entrusted in leadership positions perform poorly at their jobs, get to keep those jobs, face no consequences, while the victims of their failures have to spend their lives overcoming their trauma due to that poor performance. How are you going to make sure this never happens again? Does every employee of Vancouver School District understand the policies? Are there any trainings about boundaries with students when new staff are onboarded with the district? Is there any continuing education for current staff around changes or building specific guidelines? Do they even understand what inappropriate engagement with a student looks like? Do they know what protocol is if they see something weird or uncomfortable? It appears that whatever you're doing now isn't effective and is not being taken seriously. I am not going to stop coming, and I am not going to rest until two things happen. One, your board and your administration comes up with an action plan, not just a policy that is conveniently ignored, but a plan to prevent sexual assault of students in this district. And two, the principal and vice principal who knew what was happening, enabled it, are fired or taken early retirement. They do not belong at the helm of any school district job, period. Being a leader means doing uncomfortable things and taking on subjects that are difficult and awkward. If you aren't prepared to be awkward, you don't belong working at a school. My children, their friends, and every student who walks into a Vancouver School District building is precious and deserves protection. Every staff member deserves to know what they're supposed to do when they see something that sounds an alarm to them. I don't want to have to worry about this. But incompetence of people charged with protecting my children while they're at school has told me that I need to keep coming here. I'll continue to return and raise this issue until I see a concerted effort towards change. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I believe that concludes the public comment section. We will now begin our business section. So first up is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any need for discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Director Sproul?
Approve.
Director Zavala?
Approve.
Director Smith?
Approve.
Director Barrows? Approve. And so moved. And now our consent agenda. I just want to mention that these were discussed during our committee of the whole 2 weeks ago, I believe. With spring break, time moves differently. So do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any need for discussion? Okay, move to a vote. Director Barrows? Approve. Director Smith? Approve. Director Zavala?
Approve.
And Director Sproul?
Approve.
And I approve, and motion is passed. And now we begin our regular business. First up is a recommendation to conduct a first reading. Mr. Richmond?
Brett got that mic tonight. All right. Thanks. So we have 4 policies that are up for first read. Policy 3205 is our sexual harassment policy regarding students. You'll recall that you all revised this policy earlier this year in response to the 2024 Title IX regulations. Those have since been vacated by a federal district court. So we are revising this policy again to reflect the current Title IX regulations, which were promulgated in 2020. So the revisions, which are pretty full-scale revision to the policy, is actually sort of a reversion to the form of the policy that was in place prior to this school year. We also have policy 3210, non-discrimination. These are WASDA recommended changes so that our policy more closely aligns with the RCW requirements regarding non-discrimination, including a new requirement under RCW 28A.380.246 that we adopt and publish model school handbook language that addresses students' civil rights protections under state law, which we have done this year already. Policy 4040, public access to district records. Our policy currently establishes that the district may waive the cost for providing copies of public records when they are requested. If the cost for providing those records exceeds $30, the revision to this policy would modify that, that we can waive the cost if it exceeds $5. And last, policy 5011 is our sexual harassment policy regarding district staff. So like the student policy, these revisions are changed to reflect the, again, current Title IX regulations.
Thank you. And those will come up for second reading at our next meeting. Next on our regular business is a recommendation to select a mascot for Ruth Bader Ginsburg Elementary School.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the work of staff. Principal Flynn is here representing RBG. They followed the process procedure for bringing forward recommendations to you for consideration. These were on the committee meeting, so I know you've had a chance to look at them, and they're listed here in the order of preference from the committee.
I want to thank the principal for navigating the community, which includes the students and the staff, as well as the families around making this beautiful decision. So thank you. Do I have a motion to vote on any of these choices?
I'll move for the first option, Colibri.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
I just want to, since Principal Flynn is here, I had the opportunity yesterday, I was at a lunch meeting and somebody recognized me and said that their student was a kindergartner at RBG and said, it's just the most magical place. It's scary sending your kindergartner to school, but I feel so confident. And it was a touching thing. And just knowing that we were voting on the mascot tonight, I wanted to share that sentiment.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the diversity of the mascots, and that I do think any of them would represent the community well. And so I'm excited for Colibri.
I have a question about the artwork that goes along with, I know eventually there's usually like a symbol that goes along with the mascot, but is the artwork just kind of a representation, or is that going to be maybe the actual artwork or like symbol of the mascot? Do we know? It's just artwork.
I think at
visual
this
depiction?
time they're waiting for you to make
Okay.
a decision, and
Right.
then they would decide like what
it
that
would
would
look
look
like,
like.
yeah.
And but I think they
Beautiful
tried to
artwork,
create
but-
some renditions to give you an idea of what it would be potentially.
My understanding from the colors is that these represent a lot of the Latino colors. So that is, at least for like Day of the Dead, these are a lot of the bright colors. And so I'm assuming, it's an assumption, that that's also why they use these colors.
Any further discussion? should we have a vote? Director Barrows?
Approve.
Director Smith?
Approve.
Director Zavala?
Approve.
Director Sproul?
Approve.
And I approve as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing it forward. Next up, we have the Harney Elementary renaming.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to invite Andre Harkunani forward. He was the district lead in terms of 2 name change considerations because we had 2 schools that were going through this. We wanted to make sure that there was consistent process for both. Also coming up are Dr. Davies from Ogden Elementary and Principal Stoll from Harney Elementary. Last spring, they came before you with input from the community. And at that time, you directed them to go through the process as directed by our procedure. So I'll turn it over to Andre to tell you kind of what's happened since that time and why we're here today.
Good evening. Excited to be here to present the top 5 names for each of the schools that have emerged through the name change process. As you know, this started last school year when concerns were brought up about the people whom the schools are named after. And so both Nick Davies and Steve Stoll engaged with their community to ask, what should we do about this situation? We brought that to you, and we're given the direction to let's move forward with the name change process. Based on that, they had several community meetings. They formed committees. So we wanted to make sure the process was similar between the 2 schools. So they formed committees to really help guide the process. They had several community meetings. They created a survey so that anyone in the community could submit names. They received several names for each school. And then the committee evaluated those names based on the name guidelines in the district policy and procedure. And then they looked at which ones didn't fit once they were submitted and narrowed them down, and then had the community rate them based on school mission, vision, core values to see which names really met the community values. And then the top 5 emerged, and those are in your packets. And I'll let Steve talk about the 5 names that emerged for Harney.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us a bit of your time. The 5 names that came to the top of the rating for Harney Elementary are Edgewood, Esperanza, Bridges, Vancouver School of Hope, and Freedom Elementary. This is a conglomeration of names that were submitted through the committee, students, and teachers. We had a select group of our committee, which was formed of 2 students and 2 staff members, and I think we had about 15 community members that narrowed it down to give us 11 names that we then sent forward and were rated as a community. And these are the top 5 that came up. If you have questions on any of them, I'd love to answer that for you.
Steve, these are in the order in which they were.
These are in the order that that they rated. So yes, 1 through 5.
I think if we can go through both experience, because they're similar, and then we can go to the agenda items if that's okay with you. In the packet and accessible to the public too is all the rationale that was put into that and the information behind each name. So those are here just as a resource. And then I'll turn it over to Dr. Davies to talk about the Peter S. Ogden process.
So the process was almost identical to Harney in terms of how we ended up with these top 5 names, which after our committee helped narrow it down, we were down to 10. So Harney had 11, we had 10. And then we went through that same rating process, had a lot of feedback from staff, community members, and hundreds of students. And this is the order in which they were given to us. Ogden, which is a dropping of Peter S. So Ogden Elementary, Ogden Meadows, Rosa Parks, Sequoia, and Horizon. And like Steve, I'm happy to answer any questions about these names or the process.
So I know some of the community members might wonder why we would go to Ogden. Could you give the rationale? If we're doing all of this work and then you end up with Ogden, back at Ogden, could you explain how the community felt about that name?
So there was multiple points that the community wanted me to bring up in reference to that name. So we got a new building in 2019, and the community and principal, which is a different leadership team at the time, they went through a similar process internally. And so every part of the building currently only says Ogden. They said at the time they wanted to drop Peter S. They didn't believe that Peter S. Ogden, the man, matched the values of Ogden, the school. And so if you go to Ogden Elementary, beautiful new building, it does not say Peter S. anywhere on it. So that has already been reflected in the building itself. We are housed in the Ogden neighborhood. It's not the Peter S. Ogden neighborhood, it's the Ogden neighborhood. We went through this process last year. Overwhelmingly, our staff, our community, our students, more than 75%, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, said that they wanted to keep Ogden but drop the Peter S., which would imply we'd have to go through a name change process because it is changing the name. And we even reached out to our neighborhood association, and they reflected similar experiences. I think one other piece that our staff really wanted people to know about was just the resiliency of the community of Ogden. It is a lot of our students have gone through some challenging times, and the building itself has as well. The building initially opened in the 40s. It was burned down by arson in the late 40s. It reopened in the 50s. It was destroyed by a tornado in 1972. It was rebuilt to the old Ogden, which we can still see on our across our campus, and then the new Ogden building now. We and our staff wanted to reiterate that the resilience of the building matches the resiliency of our students, and just everything that they've been through. And so they wanted the name to reflect that it's the history of that building. They do not believe Peter S. Matches the values of our school, but they do believe that Ogden is a good representation of our school.
Thank you.
Andre, would you mind just addressing the rationale behind the name change initially? I know that Dr. Davies mentioned Peter S. Ogden and General Harney, Steve mentioned, but I think there was an article in the Columbian that coincided with this, and I think it's important for the record to know why we're doing this.
Sure, yes. So both men have reported and documented acts of violence that they did. In fact, both of them murdered Native American, each of them murdered a Native American person. And so there was concern about having our names of our schools reflecting that past. And that was brought to our attention. And so that's what initiated the name change process.
Thank you.
So this process is a little different than we're used to. It's not a up and down. We have to have a motion to support one of these choices and then a second, and then we can have a discussion and then vote on that choice. And if that one doesn't pass, then we could go to another choice. So do I have a motion for any of the names for Harney?
I will make a motion expecting that there might be other motions for other names, because thank you, you gave us 5 excellent choices. I am going to make a motion for Edgewood Elementary.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, now do we have discussion?
So one thing that I think is unique to Harney, it's the first public elementary school, first elementary school in the state of Washington. And it therefore, just as a point of identification, my children have gone there, so I'm maybe biased, but there's a lot of heart in the local community. It has a lot of value to the surrounding neighborhood. So I really like the idea of Edgewood Elementary because it reflects the neighboring Edgewood Park. And so it still feels very anchored in that very local Harney neighborhood community. But like I already said, I think all 5 of them are excellent. I just wanted to start the discussion.
Any other discussion?
Is this the time when, if there's differentiation of opinion, does this one is brought up or no?
I would say, sure. I think we're kind of navigating by the seat of our pants on, quite frankly.
I mean, I agree in that all 5 names are amazing, and I think they represent Harney well. I guess I would have liked, or would like, Esperanza Elementary. I know that being one of our dual language schools, I think Esperanza is a good representation of what Hardy is. At least I am also a Hardy parent. And so I know that it says that it might discount our English classes, but to me, it is inclusive of all of our students. I think hope in general, I think is a very inclusive way. So that is just my 2 cents.
Any other comments?
I'll go ahead and speak in favor of the motion, although I agree. And it looks like the community also agreed. Esperanza is also a great name. My understanding is this is the order in ranked. I want to extend my thanks to both principals for all of this hard work. We've been getting regular updates every week. I check the document and say, hey, where's it at? Where are they at in the process? And so I've been following this very closely all along the way. And so I know you guys have put a lot of work into this. And so I really appreciate that. I know that it's hard to navigate this, especially when you're talking about not just 2 of the oldest schools in our district, but in the state. So these are schools with long histories. And very close-knit communities. And so change is not ever easy, but especially when you're talking about such longevity and history behind each school. So thank you. I'm going to support Edgewood just because it was ranked #1 and also because it is reflective of the neighborhood around it. One of the challenges, I think, for me thinking about Harney, renaming Harney was knowing the neighborhood is such a strong community. And so if we can maybe still recognize the community, the neighborhood that's there, I think that would be preferable in my mind.
Any other comments? We're ready to vote? So the motion is that we approve Edgewood Elementary as the new name. So let me go, Director Sproul?
Approve.
And it's okay to say no. Director Zavala?
I approve.
Okay. I approve. Director Smith? Approve. And Director Barros?
Approve.
So you have a new name. You're now the principal of Edgewood. Thank you.
Can I ask a point of clarification? This would be to start in the fall for the next school year? Like, is that when it would take?
Yeah, part of the reason this is before you here in April, and there's some urgency around a 2-year process, is to do the conversion with OSPI, to do any name titles on the school, things of that nature. So there is some time that's required to do that. So, yeah, for the fall it would be.
And is there a motion on voting on a new name for Ogden Elementary? I mean, PS Ogden, I'm not implying that my motion, is there a motion to choose one of those names?
I'll make a motion to change Peter S. Ogden Elementary to Ogden Elementary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now the discussion around. Would you like to lead the discussion or?
Well, I will just thank Dr. Davies. When I first saw the options and read through them, I had a bit of pause of staying with Ogden, but I think understanding what you talked through tonight in terms of the community rationale, the staff's input, and recognizing that the kind of what Ogden has overcome and the significance of it. I just was worried that we were retaining something that maybe we were trying to get rid of, but I think I really appreciated your explanation of why it mattered to the staff.
I will kind of echo some of those thoughts just in the 2 I toggled between were Ogden Elementary and then Ogden Meadows. My only wondering about Ogden, which I would support, because I think making the distinction, the difference between Peter S. Ogden and Ogden, the neighborhood, is if there is that much of a difference because we already just call it Ogden Elementary. And I kind of wondered if Ogden Meadows would kind of make enough of that distinction. It retains the Ogden, but keeps, but adds a little bit of a difference in kind of reading the kind of list here. It sounds like Ogden Meadows was the original name of the school. And so there's some of that historical context there. So that was kind of my only wondering with the difference between Ogden or Ogden Meadows, if the Meadows part creates that little bit of distinction. But again, I would support either one.
Any other comments? Okay, let's take it to a vote. So the motion is to approve Ogden Elementary as the new official name for Peter S. Ogden Elementary. Director Zavala?
Approve.
Director Scott?
Approve.
Director Barrows? Okay.
I will approve.
And Director Smith? Approve. And I also approve. Congratulations, you are now the assistant principal at an official Ogden Elementary School. We're not just calling it Ogden. So thank you. And we are at the point of Board of Directors report. Do I have any board directors that have any reports to give? I know we're just coming off of spring break, so.
I'll just say one, I had the pleasure of attending at VSAA last month, a collaboration between several elementary school choirs. I think it was 5, and it was coordinated by the choir teacher at VSAA. And it was a really special opportunity to see all the unique programs around the district and then come together on a Saturday to do this performance together. And it just really highlighted kind of our priorities on giving these special opportunities to kids, and watching them all sing together, having only rehearsed for about 20 minutes, was amazing.
That makes my heart happy. Anything else? I know we made this statement at our Zoom meeting, but as you are all aware, Dr. Snell is taking a new appointment with the Washington Association. Well, the Washington, let me get this right, the Washington Superintendent's Association. Is that right? Close enough. WASA. And as what we consider the best superintendent in the state, he gets to lead other superintendents and make them better. But we are very sad to see you go. And we want everybody to know that we are in the middle of creating a process for how we move forward. So, and we don't have that process yet, but we will let everyone know as soon as we do. And we still get Dr. Snell until July. So thank you for all the things you've done for us. I just want to do that. Thank you. And yeah, and so we are going to, don't forget, we are going to recess for an executive session to discuss the performance of a public employee. We will be in recess for about an hour. So it is currently 7:25. So at 8:25, we shall be done. I will return to adjourn via Zoom or extend if we need to. So thank you very much. Good evening. It is 8:25 and we are still in session. We need about 15 more minutes, which will make it 8:40. Thank you. Good evening. It is now 8:40 and we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.